A big hello, everybody, and very warm good morning. We are in our birthday month. We celebrated our fifth birthday on October 7th. We are a 5-year-old organization in our current avatar with a 40-year legacy. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this morning as your host and moderator for what I know will be an interesting hour. So, thank you for joining us in our celebrations. My name is Prasad. I joined GovTech 2 years and a quarter ago in a very exciting, newly created role. I'm responsible for our people, org, culture, and workplace functions. And people often ask me, what makes this place exciting for me? And I always say there are three P's. First is the purpose. Second is the people I get to work with. And the third, it's a platform that GovTech has provided me to play my small part in nation building. It can't get better than that. I heard a reflective quote a few years ago, and I will share that. When is the last time you did something for the first time? I repeat, when is the last time you did something for the first time? I often go back to this and ask myself, it keeps me kind of motivated. I asked myself this question again this morning, and the response was very clear. It's the first time that I am on a LinkedIn Live chat. So I'm excited. There's a reason behind it. That quote or a practice also reflects a very strong learning culture that we have in GovTech. We are in times where half-life of skills is less than 5 years, even less so in the tech industry. It reflects a big part of culture at GovTech too, the learning culture. We will hear more about this and a lot more today from our panelists. Before I invite the panelists over, and we have three exciting GovTechies joining us today, I wish to share a few things. One, while signing up, most of you had expressed interest to know more about our culture, our hybrid work arrangements, our inclusivity initiatives, etc. We will certainly share all of these and more. What I also wanted to bring to your attention and share is that we don't necessarily create a culture. As an organization, we define values and we hire people with shared values, and the behavioral manifestation of these values give birth to a culture of the organization. It is an amalgamation of several aspects. So what you will hear today of different aspects of GovTech life is all going to be giving you a sneak peek of what our culture is. So stay with us, sit back and listen. I'll also request all of you to stay till the end for a chance to win our limited edition GovTech goodie bag when you participate in the post-event survey. And I'll encourage all of you to send in your questions via the LinkedIn chat box anytime during the chat. We'll address them during the Q&A later. With that, it gives me great pleasure, friends, to invite three of my very treasured colleagues to the virtual stage. I'll request all of them to share a short introduction, their name, which you already know, what do they do at GovTech, the division that they represent, and a very brief description of the scope of work and something very exciting about themselves. Without much ado, can I have Bitek, Liana, and Zuyong come up on stage for us? And I'll start the introductions with Bitek. Bitek?
Thanks, Prasad. Hi, everyone. My name is Bitek. I joined IDA, then IDA in 2011, and I've seen actually how IDA as an organization eventually transformed into what we have today as GovTech. So I had the opportunity to see the interesting and exciting transformation of a previous organization into what we have today in GovTech. And I actually look forward to sharing some of my perspectives later with you in terms of some of the cultural shifts that has happened in organizations to be where we are today. So I'm currently leading up a team of GovTechies. We are actually based in Ministry of Education. So I'm actually leading the team there as the Chief Information Officer in MOE. So our team leads the transformation and also the delivery of digital capabilities for both MOE HQ as well as schools to better support our students, teachers, and parents in the entire education journey for our students. I'm also concurrently the cluster director for the education sector. So in this role, my responsibility is to actually drive synergies across the entire continuum of this whole concept of lifelong learning, right? Beginning from early childhood to general education to pre-employment training, and then to continuous education and training for our adult workforce. So it's an exciting scope of work because I get to see really the end-to-end perspective and be able to see what are some of the digital opportunities that we can have implement to enable the entire life cycle for our continuous learning journey.
BTech, thank you and welcome. Liana, can I pass this over to you for your introduction now?
Sure, happy to. So yeah, Liana here. I am currently a product manager with the Codex team in GovTech. So I didn't know this, but like BTech, I also started in 2011. My work anniversary is Valentine's Day. I remember I started on 14 Feb 2011 in GovTech. So in case you are new to GovTech, actually we used to be IDA. So some of us kind of precede the 5 years that GovTech has been born since 5 years ago. So yeah, it's been about 10 years plus. In the past, I used to do different projects. I used to work on some projects like data.gov.sg and the Digital Government Blueprint. But today I'm in the Codex team as a product manager. So what my team and I do is that we manage products on the SG Tech Stack and government on commercial cloud. So it's quite different from products I've done in the past, which were more citizen facing. This is more developer facing. So whether you're an in-house developer, a vendor developer, basically anybody that kind of writes code and deploys applications for the government, you are my customer, so-called. And our objectives are really to provide developers with the tools that they can use to be happy and also efficient in developing apps for the government. So for me also, outside of my day job at GovTech, I am the vice chair of a newly set up Women in GovTech group, which aims to sort of enable more GovTechies and more women to gain success with technology. I'll be happy to share more about that later on.
We'll definitely cover that, Liana. Thank you so much. Xiong, can I request you for a short introduction, please?
I am Xiong. I've been with the organization for almost 6 years. Similar to like Liana, I've been through many different projects, starting when I was an intern back in 2014, and back then it was IDA. Then I came back to work full-time as my first career, and after I did my master's. Today I'm a DevOps engineer within the Government Digital Services Division, or GDS for short. And through the many different projects, it's been a really eye-opening experience in the world of tech. In tech, you can do many different things, and I've been glad to be able to be part of the digitalization efforts in Singapore government. So yeah, I really value working on products that help and serve citizens directly and indirectly, especially in terms of digital capability. And just when when the pandemic came, I quickly went on to work on some of the systems. I was passionate to go and contribute and work on some of the efforts, including Trace Together and Supply Ally that distributes Trace Together tokens and ERT kits that you see very commonplace today that helps to fight the pandemic. And fast forward a few more months, this year, middle of this year, I started working on an initiative with a few close, passionate individuals on the topic of accessibility. And what does accessibility really mean? It's working with folks in the division to work on ground initiatives to help agencies make their digital services more inclusive and accessible to all. So yeah, that's my background. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. And as a resident and a citizen of Singapore, may I just express my personal gratitude for keeping us safe and cared for in the last 2 years when we're going through this pandemic journey. Thank you so much. And then for the sake of our audience information, I also wanted to share that Xiong was a recipient of the Go Chok Tong Enable Award last year. So congratulations to him. Can I get the team to queue up the word cloud that we have? We had started with a Mentimeter where we requested everybody, our audience, to share what their preferred work culture would be. So I just wanted to start with the word cloud here. I'll leave this for a few seconds for everybody to look at. The one big, bold, central key item here is collaboration. I see flexibility, and in various forms of it, I see teamwork. I see fun, I see inclusive, I see inspiring and motivating. I've seen growth and development. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So I wanted to invite BTech, Liana, and Xiong to share your early thoughts on what you've seen on the screen so far, what you've heard from the audience. And what is your personal favorite part of a work culture that you prefer? Maybe I'll start with Liana.
Sure. Yeah, I really like seeing the words, and I like collaboration speaks to me a lot because of many reasons. I mean, collaboration is something that everyone prefers in the workplace, but I also want to touch upon something else, which is fun, because I realized after I joined this team in August, and I realized we came on board in terms of pandemic, we don't see each other. It's very hard to build the kind of trust that you need for a collaborative team when you're in that environment and you don't see each other face to face. I mean, a few of my colleagues came on board virtually, and we only met each other like maybe 2-3 months in because of the pandemic. So I think in addition to collaboration, which I've been blessed to have very collaborative colleagues because I joined a new team as a product manager, and the team has been around for a while, even before I came in. But when I came in, they were very willing to share with me. We could learn together, and I kind of like try to work closely with them by letting them know that I know they have a lot of engineering work to do, and as a product manager, I wanted to kind of take away some of that work, and I kind of use that to see whether we have any shared goals, and I think it's been going quite well. But another thing I wanted to highlight was fun. So my team, what I appreciate most is that we have a couple of colleagues that are very enthusiastic about running like team games every month, online team games. So we've done things like Among Us and like some game about like drawing and stuff. And I do feel this is very important. The aspect of fun helps to build a team in terms of whether it's communication or just being comfortable with each other, so that, you know, when people face difficulties or they have issues, they are more comfortable to bring them up and share with the team because of that fun aspect where you've built kind of like a camaraderie within the team. So yeah, I really appreciate those two words that people have raised, collaborative and fun.
Thank you, Liana. And then we will talk a little bit more about what you and the team have been doing during our hybrid work arrangements, etc., a little later. But thanks for pointing that out. Specifically important given what we've all been experiencing in the last 2 years. Xiong, can I ask your views on what resonated with you from the word cloud and what our audience has shared today?
Yeah, very much share what the audience voted for, and that is collaboration as well. In GovTech, we have the ABC values, agile, bold, and collaborative. And personally, I've been subscribed to the value C, collaborative, very much. And I mean, just look back the last few years, the things that we do today would not be possible if we didn't have collaborative efforts within our division as well as across the division. Like I just briefly mentioned at the beginning, we started to build a accessibility team that would not be existed if the team were passionate about the topic of inclusivity, which is also mentioned by the audience, came together and huddled together and prototype things together, and methodologies and campaigning for accessibility awareness, firstly within the division, and then bringing it out further, so that we can stretch our wings and make more noise essentially, and get the topic out there that when we build digital services, it's important that we just not build for the majority, but we build for all. Yeah. And all this also will not be possible if without the support of our managers and all the different stakeholders that really support us all the way from our top leadership all the way down. And so yeah, so collaboration at all levels.
Thank you, Xiong. BTech, I'm going to just add another layer of a question to you. In response, obviously, to what you see on the screen and in what our audience have shared, but can I also ask you to comment on our own values? As Xiong mentioned, agile, bold, collaborative, ABC for short, is our values at GovTech. So is there a personal favorite of yours among the three? And what has been your experience? And more importantly, you mentioned you've been with us for a while and you've seen IDA, you've seen GovTech. How have you seen the culture evolve over time?
Thanks, Prasad. Actually, yes, ABC, right? Agile, bold, and collaborative. These are the three core values for GovTech. And I personally like collaborative very much, as much as what Ju-Young has actually shared. But to me, collaborative means actually, because I'm actually leading up a team of GovTechies based in Ministry of Education. And we have a lot of teams that are also forward deployed to other ministries as well. Okay, and collaborative here speaks very loudly to me because the work that we do in the agencies are not just who we forward deploy to the agencies alone. In fact, it takes a lot of collaborative effort for our teams based in MOE, right? For example, to be able to reach out back to our HQ colleagues, like for example, GDS, where Ju-Young belongs to, and Codex, where Vienna belongs to leverage whatever HQ solutions that were put in place, be it tech stack or common solutions they've established, and see how can we leverage it as much as possible to deliver the capabilities that we need for our agencies as well. So I think there is this term, right, where our GovTechies based in the agencies, we bring the best of GovTech to the agencies. And then our GovTechie at agencies bring the best of agencies back to GovTech. Because, for example, right, Ju-Young shared about the collaborative effort that they have embarked on with Supply Alley. In fact, when we heard about the Supply Alley effort, and last year was a difficult time where a lot of our students have to actually go into full home-based learning during the pandemic. And immediately there was a huge demand for personal learning devices. And actually we reached out to the Supply Alley team to see how we can use that as a channel to bring together volunteers in the community who are willing to offer up their extra laptop or unused laptop for students who need the personal laptop for their home-based learning. So these are examples of collaborative effort that we bring really the best of GovTech to the agencies, right? Then from the agency's perspective, we do also highlight what are some of the needs that agencies might need, and then bring it back to GovTech and then discuss very collaboratively, actively with our GovTech teams and explore opportunities and possibilities, right? So for example, we had issues around the distribution of physical education certificates. So we reached out to the blockchain team in GDS, and they came out with a digital certificate initiative riding on blockchain. And that's how now what you see is actually a digital certificate for all our graduates from now on, having a digital certificate riding on the blockchain technology. So it's a true demonstration of the collaborative culture where we're just not a small team in MOE, but actually behind us is one whole GovTech effort to support the agency digital transformation journey. And I think the other, Prasad, you said that I've been with IDA since 2011. I've actually personally seen how the organization has actually transformed itself. I think it's indeed, IDA was primarily a lot more outsourced management kind of organization previously, but now GovTech is actually a very much, we have developed very strong in-house engineering capabilities. And through the years, we have actually produced quite a lot of government tech stacks that can accelerate the digital transformation effort for the agencies as well. But in that sense, when we moved into having more organic engineering capabilities within the organization, there's also a tremendous need for how as leaders, right, like myself, transform ourselves as well. From an organization that's largely outsourced, where the skills, the leadership styles are more, command control type, into now managing a group of very young engineers, and how we also want to tap on their expertise to accelerate the digital efforts. And then how do we learn how to empower them a lot better, involving them earlier in the decision process. So it takes a lot of changes in the way we look at our leadership style. So for example, personally, I think I must confess that I may not be, you talk about really the half-life of technology being even shorter than 4 years now, right? As leaders, we are not as in touch in technology as much as our software engineers do. Okay, so there's that ability to want to stay humble and not know everything, and reach out to our software engineers to get them to teach us more about the technology, about blockchain, you know, about software engineering, about DevSecOps and all that. So there's this reverse mentoring mindset that we all need to inculcate along the way as well. And that is something that, you know, transforming from IDA to GovTech has taught me how to also adjust my leadership style and management abilities as well. I think the other piece is really about not being a director level, right? Gone are the case where traditionally directors are directing work, right? Versus now in GovTech, where there's a lot more empowerment, there's a lot more ground-out initiatives like what Ju-Yang talked about in terms of really self-organizing around a purpose, you know, that they are passionate about. And then our role as directors, I call ourselves now in the era of working directors. How do you work with the team together closely to enable, to remove impediments for them so that they can really be truly empowered to deliver what they believe strongly in? And our job here is really to support them, enable them, not so much on directing work anymore. Yeah.
Thank you, Bitek. In fact, you know, there are three things that really stood out for me, which I wanted to share with our audience today from your sharing. The first one, you know, it was something very powerful that you mentioned when you said we bring the best of GovTech to the agencies and bring the best of agencies to GovTech. It showcased one government for me. I think, you know, we often share that public service as a career. It could be one public service or one government, but many opportunities. It's just not a linear one. So it spoke to me about that. The second one, when you're talking about digital search, I also want to connect it back to the engineering culture that you spoke about. Engineering culture, strong engineering product culture is all about putting the user in the front and center of our decision making and our product development, user centricity. And then part of that is also about, you know, if I use my Google language, it was a little bit of what we called dog fooding, right? So we actually used digital certificates internally to recognize a lot of our GovTechies who went above and beyond to work during the pandemic crisis. And so we tested that inside before we were able to bring that outside. So I wanted to share that with the audience. And the third one, when you were talking about, you know, how your own leadership style has changed, part of our culture, we often speak about two things: intellectual curiosity, as we're growing in our careers, and that should always be there. But at a senior level, we also often talk about intellectual humility. You could be the senior most person, or you could be the smartest, you could be a scholar, a rank holder, but how do we show intellectual humility? So I wanted to bring that together and then highlight both intellectual curiosity and humility that also forms a part of our culture at GovTech. So those three things really stood out with your sharing. Thank you, Peter. Liana, I'd want to come to you and Ziyong a little. So we've spoken about collaboration. I wanted to discuss a little bit about our other two values, the bold and being agile. So in your experience with GovTech, can you think of a project or an engagement where you've been in the middle of, where you've been in part of the team, where you've seen these values come up, either bold or agile values come up?
Yeah, I'll try to answer that. So from my perspective, agile and bold refer to you being, so agile is like you're open to change, to constant change, and you are able to sort of address those changes and react accordingly. And bold is, you know, when you try to do something different. I think for me, one of my experiences that I could refer to is possibly, so internally we had this effort to move to what we call GovTech 2.0. which was kind of trying to unpack all the challenges within the organization and trying to figure out what could be our new culture, our new ways of thinking. And I recall that happened about a couple of years back, and there was like a group of us that were part of this task force. And that to me reflected a lot about being agile and bold, because from the ground up, this team had a big task, which is, to relook at the organization and kind of find out what are some of the things that we need to address, what were some of the feedback on the ground, and sometimes the things that you learned were new and perhaps not necessarily something that people have been thinking about very much. And to me, that demonstrated a bit of agility and bold, because we were constantly having to react to what we've been learning as we go along. And of course, there's, future projects, there's always a timeline set to that. And that kind of agility, I think, is very different from the GovTech that I knew when I first joined. I first joined as almost a fresh grad. It was very project-based, very much, okay, this is a plan, this is what we learned, this is our timeline. But that initiative was very much iterative. So every week you would learn something and you would change, you would learn something and you would change. And at the end of it, you may have reached the goal you wanted, and you may have not, and you may have to accept that perhaps something you set out to do, it might be different from what you originally envisioned. So to me, that's one of the ways it demonstrates agility and boldness. And also the fact that people were doing this on the side. It's not their main job. This was something that they had to do and react to in addition to their workload. So I think, to me, the fact that this group of people were kind of like stepping out to do this, they also demonstrates a certain kind of boldness to be part of these kind of experimental kind of initiatives.
Thank you, Liana. Xiong, we had and have continued to have a very ambitious agenda of digital government and smart nation. And then come Feb 2020, things turned on its head, and COVID hit us. And then a lot of what happened after that, in terms of how we had to manage, how GovTech and the entire government had to show up to take care of everybody in Singapore, to me, as an observer, is nothing short of being bold and being agile with our work. And you've been in the middle of that. You spoke in your introduction about being part of both the Trace Together team and the Supply Ally team. Tell us a little bit about what was happening on the ground. How did you all work together as a team to make this magic happen, to keep us all safe?
Yeah, so let me share from the point of view of Supply Ally. So when the pandemic was literally just at our shore, right? The first cases came in and all that. The team, a few of us actually mobilized together, and including the Trace Together and Supply Ally team. We worked on two different things. The Trace Together was assembled, and the team literally went on to study if how can we better do contact tracing, and many ideas popped up from Bluetooth to Wi-Fi, all kinds of different prototypes and experiments literally was conducted, and we even had an anechoic chamber. Where, if you know what's an anechoic chamber, is a place where you can measure radio wave signals and all that. And the team actually mobilized together to get the beam bowl, to get the ground running and test, whether we can come up with a solution that can be rolled out. And I mean, if you look at when Trace Together was deployed, it's fascinating that we came together, burned through the late nights and all that, and all the different people doing different things together, and to come up with a solution in record time. I think there's never been such a fast deployed solution that's been gone through all the different phases of testing and all that. And similarly for Supply Ally, when MTI needed to distribute over 4 million masks, it's a daunting task if you want to distribute masks on the ground and ensure that people have their fair share of masks, right? People don't get to double dip, right, and all that. So the Supply Ally mobile app was born literally out of the use case of doing centralized tracking of disbursement or issuance of physical goods. So Then there the team also came together literally within a week to go through the motion of testing a mobile app, going through the user tests through our volunteers and all that, and make sure that it hit the road running on the day that we needed it to. And that all this speaks loudly and boldly of how we can achieve this during a pandemic. And I also want to add on that I think all this was not possible if GovTech hadn't built up its capability over the years in being agile and bold. Yeah, and all this came together at not for the right time, but for the pandemic, but we are ready to step up and contribute in these efforts.
I think something that you mentioned about doing it, right? So this goes back to what I was sharing earlier. Culture isn't really about the posters that we put in the office or what we talk about, what we have in a PowerPoint presentation, etc. It's really about the behavioral manifesto. How do we show up day in, day out as employees of an organization, in this case, GovTech, and how do we behave? How do we show up for the organization, for the teams, for each other? And then all of you, with your sharing so far, have demonstrated how does that happen on a day-to-day basis in GovTech. I wanted to touch a little bit upon the Women in Tech ERG that Liana spoke about. But before that, for the benefit of the audience, I wanted to share a couple of things. Last year, Singapore Computer Society partnered with IMDA, SG Women in Tech and MediaCorp to launch Singapore 100 Women in Tech list to recognize outstanding women in Singapore who made significant contributions in the growing tech sector. So for this year's Singapore 100 Women in Tech list, very proud to share that Liana has been chosen as one of the 100 Women in Tech list for Singapore. And I just wanted to congratulate her again on behalf of all of us on this panel and end the session here. Liana, many congratulations.
Yay, Liana.
Thanks, everyone.
As a continuation, Liana, as a co-chair, that you shared you were of our ERG, the newly formed ERG, can you explain a little bit more about what the ERG is focusing on? What are the immediate goals and plans for them? And I would then follow it up with a question for BTech, because BTech is involved in this as well.
Sure, happy to do that. So the ERG was just set up this year. As Prasad mentioned, it's a newly set up women sort of resource group. I'm very excited about this group because I feel that, like what Prasad mentioned, SES started the list last year. So there's a growing momentum to enable more women to get into tech. And in my own experience, I've spoken to some girls in tech, and they usually share stories about how sometimes they feel like they're the only lady maybe in the classroom, and there's and it does affect people in terms of how they eventually choose to do careers in tech. So a recent study by NTU shared that I think it was like 58% of women that were doing STEM courses, only 58% actually did STEM careers compared to 75% of men. So I think one of the goals of the ERG is to enable more women to actually gain success in tech in whatever they deem success to be like. So we have a really great expo set up. I'm really excited. We have a few of us from different parts of the organization, including from our subsidiary. And also we also have a male member who stepped up to be part of this ERG exco team. And I'm really looking forward to partnering the team for the next year. We are a very new team, but we are a very enthusiastic team. What we want to do is firstly to try for greater awareness and appreciation of diversity in our workforce, and also to foster allyship through various programs. So some of the events that we have coming up are career talks with women, whether it's GovTech women or women in the industry or even out of the industry, but basically a woman that has an interesting perspective or story to share with the rest of us. So that's one thing we're excited about. A few other things we are working on are things like workshops and brown bags on diversity and inclusion matters, just to sort of give everybody some exposure to what it means when we say diversity and inclusion. What does it mean when we say ally? So naturally, all these events are both for women and men alike, to foster greater allyship. Yeah, so really quite excited about this, and as always, please feel free to reach out to any of us if you're interested to find out more.
Thank you, Liana. And then while you did mention about certain examples where there could be the only girl student in the class, I'm sure with role models and inspirations like you, we are not in any kind of short supply at GovTech. I just wanted to share that we have a 32% female in tech at GovTech, which is higher than the industry standards that we see, and then we're incredibly proud of our diverse workforce, and that we want to continue focusing and building on. But thanks for continuing to be an inspiration there. BTech, over to you. You are one of our exec co-sponsors for the CRG, and a very prominent ally. So I just wanted to check with you what prompted you to accept this responsibility, and how do you see the importance of allyship when we're talking about women in tech or our inclusion efforts, and which eventually leads to strengthening our culture?
Yeah, thanks, Prasad. Well, and when I was approached to say, do we want to consider being an executive sponsor for this ER Women in Tech, in GovTech ERG, I kind of readily accepted it, because I felt that, as a male colleague, right, I felt compelled that I want to be a key advocate to support this whole movement within GovTech as well. I think it's important that as male colleagues, right, we want to show the support and actually recognition of the kind of contributions that our women colleagues can actually make in the field of technology, digital technology as well. I think like Liana, there has been quite a lot of outreach effort to encourage our female students to take, not just continue to have passions in STEM education, but also to really materialize their STEM education into a career in STEM as well, right? And more importantly, it's not just about attracting them into the world of technology, but also creating a very conducive and supportive environment, work environment, for them to continue to thrive in technology as well. And that's where I find that my role as an executive sponsor, as a male executive sponsor, is very significant, because we do also want to make sure that our male colleagues within GovTech as well, or even in the larger ecosystem, continue to also recognize the contributions that our women colleagues can contribute in technology, and how we can play a very enabling and supportive role for them as well. I think today, in my interaction with a lot of my women colleagues, they are very good in the technology piece. Often than not, I find that they lack a bit of confidence, probably because they find that they are the minority. They don't have a very supportive environment, or someone who can confidently share their challenges, right? And I think it's our role to make sure that we provide that safe space for them to even reach out to kind of consult us, and we can share different perspectives. And I will tell you that I have one of the best experience working with our women in tech, because they do also bring across very different perspective, right? Physiologically, we're all built very differently, so we do also feel very differently, right? I think for the most women, they do come with them the instinctive ability to have a lot more empathy, a lot of human factor consideration, and these are actually increasingly very important skills or capabilities, right, or perspective to have as we pursue a lot more user centricity in the way we design and deliver our digital services for the public.
Thank you, BTech. I just wanted to share that we will get to the audience questions in a few minutes. I had a question for Zhuyong now. Zhuyong, we've been talking about inclusivity, and that's true for even our products, accessibility products. As Singapore undergoes digitalization, which obviously has been accelerated by the pandemic, and we've spoken about that, it's important that tech or products is designed to be accessible for everybody. And I know that you are very passionate about it as well. So we wanted to hear from you about product accessibility or tech accessibility.
Yeah, so tech accessibility really means a few things. Ensuring that the products and services, as you mentioned, we deliver are inclusive and accessible, meaning the users are, for example, when they go out and use Trace Together or Safe Entry, for example, they are included in the system. They can do their check-ins and check-outs, essentially. Then for all the broader kind of services, those that are especially going digital first, that means that those services will need priority in terms of accessibility, meaning that we have to take a look at who the intended users are, and then ensuring that those services are catered or are accessible to them. And that also means that that might also mean certain redesign, certain tweaks, certain way of getting the system or messages across maybe web, digital, mobile apps, and even those sensors and IoT, even if there are such applications. So yeah, so that means really targeting not just for the 95% of users, but the whole, we can try to aim for 100%. Yeah.
Thank you, Gio. For the audience, we've started collecting your feedback, so you can start giving the feedback about the session even as we continue to discuss here. The QR code is up on the screen for you. So that's one. And the second one is, remember, we did say that we will talk a little bit about the hybrid work that we've gotten into. So I haven't forgotten that. We'll come to that in a bit. And we have a couple of interesting audience questions. So I wanted to start off with one of that before we come to the segment on hybrid work. BTech, I'll probably have this question. There is a question from Edmund. As a public sector adopts agile methodologies, how has GovTech addressed the issues with red tapes within government projects and known to be a counter agent to agile development processes, the red tapes which are known to be counter agent to agile development processes? Would you be able to share some thoughts on how we address this, both from a leadership perspective and the projects that you said you're doing with the ministries and agencies?
Thanks, Prasad. I can certainly share that. I think because we, for example, in MOE, we have actually two very key projects, namely Parents Gateway, as well as the Student Learning Space. Both are actually projects that we embarked on using the Agile methodology as well. And in fact, they are quite different in nature. One is actually built in-house by an in-house engineering team, which is Parents Gateway. And then Student Learning Space is a total outsourced Agile project. So I can certainly speak to that, right? So when it comes to an in-house team, it is a lot more easier. We can overcome any so-called possible red tapes. I think the main red tapes within an in-house development project is really about getting the teams to share their daily impediments. And actually, as a leader myself, I try to make time to participate, in the daily stand-ups for the teams as well. But being very senior as a leader, when you jump into a daily sprint stand-up from the team, that you need to also be mindful that the team will feel very reserved about sharing what they do and what they face, what challenges they face. But I do encourage them to speak up, and then I'm there to listen, but I'm not immediately ready to jump in with any solutions or not. But because I'm listening, I'm hearing their challenges and impediments, then I can then suggest ways, or maybe take it upon myself to remove some of these impediments that might slow the progress for the teams as well. So I think those are, as I shared earlier, really the leadership style changes, right? That as a leader, as a management team, we need to adjust and then support the teams in the agile way of doing things. The other aspect is really about procurement, right? I think underlying this question is really, the red tape is about how do we procure and all that. And that's the example. That's how the example of Student Learning Space came in fairly useful. We were quite deliberate that we want the outsourced development for Student Learning Space to be in the form of agile. So we have actually deliberately designed the contract right, to enable a lot more agile delivery. So there is a mix of both time and material design into the contract, as well as also certain expectations for outcomes and deliverables as well. So it's actually a strike or balance in the middle, because in a traditional waterfall way of outsourcing is that we all measure the industry vendors by outcomes, by deliverables and milestones. But we do also know that the nature of agile project is such that you may not know everything up front. You want to adjust and iterate along the way based on what you discover along the way through your user research and user validation process. And therefore, we build in some flexibility in terms of time and material kind of resourcing and services provisioning to allow such uncertainty, us to be able to manage such iterative discovery and adjustment along the way. So that's how we have actually overcome some of these so-called red tapes in terms of government procurement processes as well. And I think I would say that we are fairly so far successful in that, because for student learning space, we've been able to roll out big releases, major releases every 6 months. And why every 6 months? We are able to do it in 3 months, but because of the academic cycle, we try not to disrupt learning for the schools. So we kind of time it with the major school holidays, which is mid-year school holidays as well as the year-end school holidays.
Thank you, Bitek. Zoyong, there's another question that I think you would be best equipped to answer. There's a question from Ronald. There are standard frameworks for Agile such as Scrum. However, different organizations may apply the frameworks differently depending on organizational needs. How does GovTech product teams adopt and adjust the framework to their needs?
I think the choice of agile methodology, be it a Scrum, Kanban, etc., really depends on individual teams. I'll give an example in my previous team as well. When we started out the project, we had requirements coming and going, and we thought that, hey, Kanban was suitable, and the team adopted Kanban, which is more in terms of a rolling cycle. There's not really like how many, it's differently measured than say Scrum, where you have story points and all that. So over time, as the project progresses, we check in with our individual team members. How are they doing? How do they see the project evolving? How is the pace of development? Are you well? Are you tired? And etc. Then we realized, hey, maybe we should try a Scrum, because there's more fixed scope and cadences to how we prioritize things. So that's where the team makes the decision, or rather the delivery manager in GovTech will rally the people together, and the method that we use will evolve over time to best suit the team. So yeah, in short, there's no fixed formula of how, or we prescribe to each team how they should do things.
So we are being truly agile in that manner and have a choice, to demonstrate there.
Indeed, because we are foremost outcome driven, and it's also very important to take care of our people as well.
Thank you, Zoyong. Liana, there is another question which I thought you would be. You are sort of a role model for us when it comes to mobility. You've done different roles in GovTech, so the question kind of speaks to your experience. I'd welcome you to answer this. For mid-careerists, and this is a question from Darren, for mid-careerists, from the people and organization perspective, how would the current or evolving work culture enable this potential talent pool to move into key areas of occupation within the ICT segment? So what would you like to share, and then maybe lead with your example?
Thanks, Prasad. So before I answer the question, I actually wanted to thank BTech for being our executive sponsor, the first male executive sponsor. I didn't want to interrupt just now, but yeah, thank you so much for that. I suppose the thing about career pivots is that firstly, you have to be you have to take the chance to do a career pivot. So I've seen how, like, for example, for myself, I've done 2 big moves within GovTech in my GovTech IDA 10 years of staying here. The first was a move from a more program management policy role to strategy. And then my latest move was from strategy to product management. What has been supportive, what the support I've been able to get from an organization like GovTech is, of course, the openness for the different managers to be willing to take a chance on somebody from a different division, maybe a different role, to try out something new. And one thing I've learned was that whatever you've done in your previous role, there usually is some kind of transferable skill that you can actually move on in your next role. And I would focus on that and use that as a leveraging point to determine maybe what kind of pivot makes the most sense for myself. Another thing I've learned is also, like I said, the managers have to be open to this. And when you start a new role, you probably would have to spend maybe 20% learning, 80% delivering. I think that's what my manager kind of shared with me recently. And that's quite natural. I think for me also, I was fortunate enough to be able to further my studies with GovTech and to pivot into a product manager role. And that meant that I would have to take away some time to go and learn and come back and try something different. The culture of pivoting is, I feel like it's increasingly common nowadays. No longer do people stay like 5 years in a role. Most people nowadays would change roles every 2 to 3 years. They would find, like I said, you find skills that are transferable and move into an adjacent role and try something else. So the whole culture around learning actually really supports this, because you could pick up new skills, whether it's on the job, whether it's through formal education. And the culture of being open to people learning and trying new things is very important for this. Even within my team now, I hope he doesn't mind me sharing, but we have an ex-math teacher who joined our team as a data analyst. So using, I think he went for a GA course on data and analytics. I suppose using his math interest and his math skills and transferred that into a very brave mid-career switch into tech, if you ask me. But he brings his own perspectives as a teacher and also as somebody who recently did a data science course. And I think that's very valuable for organizations to see that there's a sense of diverse perspectives that you need within the team. And sometimes this comes from mid-career switchers who have had backgrounds in different areas. But the organization would have to have a very strong learning culture, be open to enabling people to spend maybe 20% learning, 80% delivering for maybe at least the first 6 months or so. Yeah, so that's a very long question to that, but I do feel that the most important segment is the openness and to also think about what's an adjacent role you can move into, because to move 180%, it would be very difficult, but do find like that little thing within you that could help you move into the adjacent role.
Diana, thank you.
Prasad, if I may, I would also like to share a bit of my perspective as well. I think earlier on, I shared that, GovTech is actually an organization that transformed from the former IDA, which was largely a outsourced project management outfit previously, right? And now we're into a lot more co-sourcing, agile delivery kind of outfit. Obviously, in the larger organization, we have a huge group of people that actually were largely, the skill sets were around outsourced project management. Right. And obviously, while we have aggressively hired a lot of young graduates who are digital natives or software engineers by default, we are also felt compelled that it is also necessary to bring the rest of the organization, which were largely the skill sets would land around outsourced project management, to also go in to be able to take on projects. They are a lot more agile in nature and co-sourcing in nature as well. And therefore, we have embarked on a very systematic process of job redesign, identifying what are some of the new competencies that comes with the digital roles that we are increasingly expecting our teams to be performing in, and then providing the necessary organizational support in terms of training, in terms of practice, opportunities for practice, right? To put in to practice their skills that they have learned through training or whatnot, and then then enabling them to really now start doing the digital work as well. So as an organization, we feel that it's also our roles and responsibility to continue to develop our people. And that's the culture we have in GovTech and the kind of management mindset and leadership mindset we have with our people here in GovTech. So I just thought it's an important point I'd like to share with the audience.
Absolutely.
Here.
Thank you, BTech. I wanted to share a couple of personal observations. I'm not speaking in the capacity of my role at GovTech, but more as a GovTechie myself. If you look at this panel, I'm the newbie in GovTech. Like I said, I've been here 2 years and a quarter. Came with about 20 plus years in private sector life, including 12 years in Google, and then about a year and a half as an entrepreneur. That's when I joined. So my own observation and my experience is that GovTech is a technology organization which is cited in the government and not a government organization that does tech. In fact, we were in a leadership session a couple of days ago, and then one of the leaders actually made a statement saying we are the most non-government government organization. I think that kind of goes on to share that some of our approaches have been different. And again, continuing on what BTech said, and now wearing a hat as a member of the leadership team, what we do for a developmental perspective, what we do for enhancing the learning culture is to make a commitment that we are not focusing on lifetime employment, we are focusing on lifetime employability. So rotations, ability to kind of move around roles, ability to continually develop yourself is very much a part of our commitment to the growth of any GovTechie who works with us. So that's our commitment. So I know we're down to the last couple of minutes, very interesting conversation, but we'd also made a promise that we will share a little bit about our hybrid work. So I will, on behalf, because it's also under my executive purview, so I'll probably share a couple of quick pointers about hybrid before we close this out. So, life as we know has changed, and may I dare to say irrevocably so, right? We are talking about new normals, but my personal belief is that we are not there yet in terms of a new normal. We're going through what I call phases of current normals, gearing up for what the future might be. So it was important for us at GovTech as well to lock in the gains from what we learned and how we have navigated or continue to navigate. So we took a decision last year to move to a hybrid work arrangement on an ongoing basis. As an information, Singapore Public Service has done the same as well. So we want to use the office space focusing on collaboration, social connections, and teamwork, and not necessarily to come in and just sit there and do our work every day. So with that, we have recast our, telecommuting policies. So part of the work arrangement or the hybrid work arrangement is that we will work 3 days from home and encourage GovTechies to come to work 2 days a week. That said, the guiding principles remain trust, flexibility, and choice. So we continue to work on seamlessly blending the physical and the virtual without compromising on the quality of experience of conversations and impact of work. So that's really where we've landed as an organization. In addition to this, I also wanted to call out that as much as we have our values in place and we continue to strengthen and nurture our culture, the role of leaders in making this happen and being ambassadors of our culture, setting the tone from the top is absolutely critical as well. So we have started on a journey last year on what we call a GovTech way. We had our mission, we had our values, that anchored our culture. And as the organization is scaling rapidly, we also wanted to have a set of leadership principles that would be guiding our leaders and GovTechies at large to show up for the organization, for the team, for ourselves, between ourselves. So we've landed with 3 principles: act with purpose, model empathy, and develop people. And what we are doing now is we've set up a culture leadership team. BTech and I are both part of the culture leadership team. We hold accountability for cascading and sustaining GovTech way. So we actually started with workshops for all our people managers to start with. And before the end of next year, it is a longitudinal effort. We will have every single GovTechie go through this program. And, going back to what we discussed earlier, it's just not going to be about, understanding what it is. We want to encourage everybody to live that part, live the GovTech way, live our values, live our culture. So that's really what we're kind of looking at this point in time. So with that, I really wanted to thank BTech, Liana, and Ziyong for sharing your experiences, sharing your journey at GovTech, giving what I believe are very key insights for our audience today who's joined us. And the second one is I wanted to thank, on behalf of everyone in GovTech, all our audience today. Thanks for the interest, thanks for the engagement, and thanks for the feedback. Please do submit your feedback. The QR code is still open. And, do follow us on all our social media. We are on LinkedIn, we are on Insta, we're on Twitter and Facebook. Have a great rest of the Friday and happy weekend. And keep the questions coming, keep your interest going, and much, much appreciated. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.